Hi guys, Yacca here. So I'll be trying to do some instruction videos regarding playing both constructed and arena. I'm quite adept at playing both play styles. I've been in the start of when I started playing Hearthstone, I was more or less solely playing arena. So I have a lot of my backbone in the game is really from that point in time. Um, just a little bit about myself as an arena player. I'm not by any means the greatest arena player at all. I've not made the leaderboard. I do not play enough arenas even to try for the leaderboard. But I just took a look at the stats over the last 4,000 games that I played in arena that I tracked. I have an average win rate of 5.2, and the average player will have around 3, because if it's just a coin toss, you win or lose. How the most players will just finish at 3. So that means that I have what it takes to push maybe for an arena board leaderboard appearance, and at least I have a good concept of the mechanics around arena. So I like to make some videos explaining what are the thought concepts around me playing arena. And it's a very different skill set from playing constructed, which you will see when I get to that point in time where I will be making some instructions videos around that. But we'll leave it at that, and we'll get to that when we arrive at that point in time. What is important to understand in the arena, which I will not cover in these instruction videos, is that there is a meta, like a game behind the game, which is something that is different between each expansion that hits the game. And this time it's been shook up by different expansions being modeled together. It still makes up a meta that you have to figure out somehow. Do you need 2 drops in order to be able to actually have a functioning deck in this meta? And some of that is through experience or listening to other streamers or YouTubers from people playing the arena. You also have your own impressions, of course. But the instruction videos that I'll be making will be split up in different sections. The first part, which is all many times where you make or break your chance of having a high win rate, is the draft. After the draft, I'll be doing a video on board control, value, which is another video. These are important concepts in the game in general, but also very much in the arena. Then I'll be doing another video, and this is an important one, around tempo. Tempo is where whatever you do affects your ability to do something with your opponent or affect the board. That is tempo in general, but I'll be getting into that description a little bit later on. There's also going to be a video around losing, because whether you like it or not, you will be losing sometimes in the arena. Most times you will not go 12. That's just a few decks that will be able to, and you will need to get very lucky. Even the best decks sometimes fall short, and then even if you play perfectly, you won't go 12 at all. So you need to understand what it means if you have a bad arena run, or if you just lose a match which has been close and your opponent gets lucky. What are the things you have to be careful about when you queue into the next game? I'll be doing a video on playing to your outs, or playing to your win conditions, you could say. That will be a video on itself. And the last video is a little bit more refined, which will be around reading your opponent and out of turn planning. So what are you doing when it's not your turn? You only have a set amount of seconds to deal with the board, a minute and a half. Whenever whenever it's your turn or your opponent's turn, and you need to make the most out of those turns. But that will be a video on itself as well. Okay, getting into the draft, then there are different sites which can help you. Generally, I would say that you need to be able to find some information out there. The information that other players have made available for you on the internet, on sites, are really important for you to succeed in getting a good start with the arena. And I would say the first thing I would suggest is that you get a deck tracker. There are different ones. The one I use is hsreplay, where they have a deck tracker which keeps track of your opponent's cards that they played, if you like, your own cards, which secrets has been played. It takes some of the things that you need to be aware of out of your thinking and makes them available on the screen. This is very important for you to concentrate specifically on the plays that your opponent might want to do, or the ones that you do. So this is something that I would really recommend, because that gives you a slight edge. That sometimes you spot the lethal, or you see the good trades, you focus on that, and then are you also able to see or remember some outs that you might have in your deck or something like that. So that's one thing. But there are also arena tier lists or arena drafting tools. The two that I know of is Arena Drafts and Heartharena. I will be making some links to those in the description. I'm not affiliated or anything with any of them. And my general impression of the different tools, you'll get a tier score which shows you the strongest cards in that specific pick that you are doing. I would say one thing that I like with regards to Heartharena is that it takes into consideration synergies. For instance, if you pick a card many times, then it gets worse. Or if you pick high level cards with a high cost, you don't want too many of those, and Heartharena will always suggest you pick something that is of a lower cost and will give that a higher score. So it will guide you a little bit in that direction. I used Heartharena in the beginning. I don't particularly like, at that point in time at least, the tier list that they based their picks from. So I switch over to Arena Drafts, which is they look into the Grinning Goat tier list, and that's something that suits my play style a little bit better. But you can choose whatever, because an Arena Drafts does not take in consideration synergies, and at least not now, or if you've chosen a card that is of a high cost too many times or something like that. But this is something at least I can instruct you a little bit with when we go into the arena pick screens and we choose a class. Also, just considering the class, there's a lot of information before we even start. There are also classes which are stronger than others. So if you want to just focus on having a high win rate in the arena, you should try and see in hsreplay. I can also provide a link for that. There will be like an arena ranking on their webpage, so you can see which classes at the moment are the strongest ones, and you should always pick those if you just go for the strongest win rate, highest win rate. But there are also, for instance, when Priest is strong, that's a class that I'm not really strong with. So this means that Priest is one of my weaker classes, where others are really strong playing Priest. So I'm prone to not pick that, even though in the meta that the Priest is not really, or even in the meta that the Priest is strong, and I usually do not pick it anyway, because I'm not the strongest arena priest player. But that's just a bit of around the draft. We'll get into it right now. And I'm not sure it works. I hope it does, because I just installed the Arena Draft application, which should provide an overlay and give us some Arena tier scores. I might choose not to disregard the tier scores, but I'll explain why and why that suits my playstyle whenever there's something that is a discrepancy. So we'll jump into a draft and play the first game. Okay, out of these, I've had some good results with Rogue. I'm generally, if you look at my scores across my full Arena history, I'm a very strong Hunter player. Paladin is okay right now in Arena. But I would actually like to do a Hunter draft with you guys. Hunter has the potential to go very aggressive, and there are people that are playing Hunter really aggressively and have some success with that. But right now the meta has shifted, so it's more of a mid-range. I usually try to draft mid-range decks. Sometimes they end up being a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more control heavy. But we'll pick Hunter and see what where we go from here. Okay. I'll just see if I can make the overlay work, and if not, we'll continue to the draft from here. Guys, I just had to restart the application, but now we're there. So we'll have a look on the draft itself. I'll go into a lot more details here of why I agree or disagree, but this is what you'll see, this kind of overlay with the score there. This time I do agree. It's important for the Hunter to get on the board and be there. That's the kind of style that I like to play. And a Fiery Bat with 1 mana and a 2/1 will challenge a lot of 2-drops, both the 3/2s and the 2/3s, because the Death Rattle ping might also go to the minion as well. And just having your 1-drop deal with a 2-drop, that's really good and allows you to control the board, but that will be in the next video. Just this time, I'd say that the Fiery Bat is really, really good, and it also has the Beast tag, which is also of some importance in the Hunter class. So the next one, I would say that I like to also go for the minions, but the first Hunter's Mark that you encounter is really good in actually dealing with any kind of big minion that your opponent might have. So this means it's really good to punch through some taunt minions, or just dealing with a significant threat on the board. Hearthstone gets a lot better if you know you also have mechs in your deck, because having a 3-mana 3/3, that's perfectly fine. That's what you would call vanilla stats. Vanilla stats is kind of where you sum up the attack and defense value, and that needs to be twice the mana cost. So in this instance, for the Hearthstone, it's 3/3 at 6, and that's twice the mana cost of 3. What you also would like to do is actually get cards that are better than that, because many times you'd see a 3-drop which has 3/4. That's overstated for the cost, which makes it a good card. But when it's overstated, it might be an effect that has a drawback. This is only a positive effect. You might not have a mech, but it doesn't hurt you. This effect the Hearthstone has. But the Hunter's Mark here is really good, I agree, and this is the pick we'll go for. See, Rapid Fire and Hunter's Mark is good. Mossy Horror. Mossy Horror hurts a lot of the minions that you have in the deck. Just looking at the Fiery Bat, it'll kill your own minions as well. And it's not that kind of deck that you really want. You want to... What we're drafting towards right now is that the first 10 cards is usually always the strongest one that you would like to go for, and that's kind of the rule you can set in your mind. You also need to be careful around the curve that you see down here. You need to be focused around the early parts, like distributed around the 2 or 3. So you need to make sure that you always can play some early stuff, and then you need to flatten out the curve towards the really late game. There will be some discrepancies here, and you'll also sometimes have a great deck with a huge peak towards the 7+ drops, but the usual deck will have a curve which peaks around 2 or 3. Shade of Naxxramas is, because it's stealthed, always a 3/3, because it'll go on the board and stay as a 2/2, but next turn, when you can actually react with it, it'll be a 3/3, and it just keeps on growing. So there's a really large potential for the Shade of Naxxramas to actually be a really significant threat, and it continues to grow. So I'll also pick the Shade here. Marked Shot is really good, like really good. Usually, this is really good. Freezing Trap is more or less the only good trap that you would see in Hunter. The Hunter traps are okay, but Freezing Trap is really the biggest one, because it allows it denies your opponent an attack either on one of your minions or you yourself, and you can also, before playing the trap, maybe affect the board a little bit in order to actually make sure that it's a specific minion that gets frozen and have a higher mana cost. However, with that said, saying Freezing Trap is really good, Marked Shot has you can affect the board right away, and anything that you can affect the board with, you need a certain amount of that. Spells are usually the ones that affects the board. Marked Shot has an upside of letting you discover another spell. Could even be another Marked Shot, which can discover another Marked Shot, and then you have an infinite value effect there. Value is a concept we'll cover later, but just saying that this is a value card. But it's also a tempo card, because it does something right away. Again, tempo is something we'll cover a little bit later, and you'll see a gameplay video where I'll go into a little bit more detail on that one. And it has no condition, so if you deal 4 damage and the minion doesn't have to die or anything, or you overkill it or anything, you just discover a spell right away. The only downside to Marked Shot is that it can't go face. You can't use this to finish off an opponent, but still controlling the board and getting another spell is really good, and that's why we'll pick it here. Okay. It suggests multi-shot here. Multi-shots is also a kind of a control mechanism, and also Hearthstone as a 3-drop. We don't have any specific mechs right now, so we do not know right now if it'll get an upside. This time I will actually disagree, because I can see right now I'm getting a lot of spells. Half of my deck right now is already spells, and I want really to make sure that I can maybe drop a 1-drop. That might not be certain, but at least I get a 2-drop. My Hunter's Mark is not something I can use if I'm not on the board. That's why, to make sure that I do have a curve with the good minions, this time I'll actually choose the worst one, which is the 2-drop. So here I'll choose the 2-drop, realizing multi-shot, I agree, is the strongest card, but I would like to make sure that I have minions to drop on turns maybe 1, but then at least 2 and 3. That's important for the Hunter right now. Hunter has kind of, I'm trying to draft towards having the win condition of being on the board and controlling the board, but you can also have the go face approach, so dealing a lot of damage with dealing a lot of damage with the stuff you have on the board and just trying to push with the hero power, which does 2 damage. What goes against this game plan of being an aggressive deck is the Corrupted Healbot. If you look at the stat distribution for 5 mana, that's 6/6, and in any other deck than Hunter, a Corrupted Healbot will actually be a very good pick. And if you want to go towards a more control style with the deck that you have as a Hunter, then a Corrupted Healbot is definitely fine. Then you're just not pushing for that aggressive finish towards your opponent. And I'm not I'm not there yet, that I would like to disregard that as a win opportunity. Looking at Felork Soulfiend, that's actually also something that is really well statted. A 3 mana 3/7, that's pretty good. It actually passes the test really well. But then we need to also consider the stat that is on the card. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to this minion. This means that if you, for instance, push this one into a 3 mana 3/3, the first turn you drop this, then it doesn't do anything, then it drops to a 3/5. And then you push it into a 3/3 maybe, or 3/4, and then you go to a 3/2. And the next turn that is your turn, you haven't had any chance to heal it because you're not a priest, you're only a hunter, so you can only, your hero power goes face. Then you've made the sacrifice of a 3 mana 3/7 for just a 3/3, or even your opponent might affect this minion as well, push some damage in it, and then you might not even get to that point where you can actually use this, the Felork. So it has a really negative power on the card itself, which makes it a pretty bad card, at least for the Hunter class. Blackwall Pixie, I completely agree, is the good pick here, because in the late game you will also be able to push the hero power button, drop the Pixie, and push the hero power button again. That's a 7 mana turn, but it also comes connected with 4 damage to face, which is a considerable amount of, perhaps in the late game, a considerable amount of your opponent's life total. Your life in the arena is just a pool. If you have weapons, just use it to get rid of some minions and stuff like that. But the end game is, of course, to get to 0 health. And that's something Blackwall Pixie will definitely do in the Hunter class. Okay, so this is a bit interesting. You can also see that the score is actually quite close, 296 and a 107. So something that is, we want to be on the board, and having taunt minions also directs the attacks of your opponent. But one thing that is also good is having a broad board. A broad board is something that you could get with Double Gangster, because these 4 damage you won't be able to. You can only say that it goes there. It can go face, but you can also get rid of a minion. Double Gangster lets you distribute the attacks, so you can actually sum up the different values here. So you get 2 other minions, which are 2/2s. So that's 6 points of stats for 5 mana, and that's definitely good. Here you get 11 for 6. It actually does not even pass the vanilla test, because you should get 12 for 6. It has some upside with the spell damage as well. So that's why that's really good. And a 0 attack that you get out of the safeguard is okay, but it is a lot worse than, for instance, having a distribution of 2 and 3. So we would also like to have your minions affect your opponent's board as well. And a 0/5 does not affect anything. It's just a little bit of armor on your life total. So here I'll also go for the Double Gangster, which is my first 5-drop. Okay. Also a little bit interesting here. Big Time Racketeer is definitely a good card. I would like, I have some initiative cards. For instance, Mark Shot is one of those initiative cards, but that's kind of the only one that I can play from hand and actually affect the board right away. Hunter's Mark is a little bit, but I need to have something on the board in order for Hunter's Mark to be good. Bomb Squad is something that you drop this and then you deal 5 damage to a minion, your opponent's minion, right away. So this is a 5 mana 2/2, which is pretty awful, but deal 5 damage is really great. There's a lot of 5 mana minions right now that has 5 health. That's why Bomb Squad is really good. And the downside is really not that much of a downside, because it deals 5 damage to you, but we are trying to be on the board, so I do not expect us to get a lot of face damage. So those 5 damage I get to face in order to get rid of a minion, that is not something, it's really diminutive. It's not even an argument at all in order for you to actually get rid of something on your opponent's board. And it also develops, even though it's a small minion, it develops the board a little bit and you have something out there. This pick is definitely Bomb Squad, where I go against, you could argue, the better card, but Bomb Squad is something I really like because it gives you something to do from the hand. Okay, so these are also something that does something from the hand. Hunter's Mark, you can see I already have one, but it gets the same score as well. The tier list that the arena drafts is based upon actually punishes the high cost minions. I'm not completely convinced that I don't want the Tundra Rhino, because it also have the knock-on effect that your beasts have charge and can do something directly from the hand. The stats are quite poor, and I do not have that many beasts right now. So you could argue that is the drawback, and I would like to consider that as well, and say that I'd like to go for the Swift Messenger. But 2 Hunter's Marks, that's a bit too much. I might be offered another one. So I'd like to go for the Curve instead. And right now I do not have any 4-drops, which is again a good argument for choosing Swift Messenger. Looking at the Curve, I only have 1 4-cost card, and that requires my opponent to be on the board. And my opponent might not be on the board, or have anything that I can or should give 4 damage to. So therefore, I'd like to be able to drop a minion instead. Swift Messenger is definitely the card here then. Okay. These are definitely all quite good. I would, with the deck that I have in mind, you can actually just see it here, even in the same bucket. Spiked Hawk Rider gets charged if there's a taunted minion in the way. Looking at Rotten Applebaum, that's a taunted minion. So if you drop, your opponent drops a Rotten Applebaum, and you drop a Spiked Hawk Rider, then you can trade into the Applebaum and still have a minion left on the board, even though it's a 5/1. It's something where you can actually say, if your opponent doesn't have anything, can deal 1 damage or anything at all, and drops another Rotten Applebaum, then you remove 10 mana's worth of stuff for a 5 mana card, and you remove 2 cards. That's why Spiked Hawk Rider is definitely a lot better than Rotten Applebaum in this pick specifically. There's a strong argument also just to get on the board and affect and being there early. There's a strong argument to pick Fiery Bat there as well. So I'm a little bit torn between those two. Also, I'm expecting to get more 5-drops. So this time I will actually go for the Fiery Bat, just to make sure I have enough early game. As you can hear from what I'm trying to do with the draft, I'm trying to veer it towards having an early curve, then ending up with some late game cards. I'm really focused towards the curve, even in the early stages of the game. You could pick the Spiked Hawk Rider and it wouldn't probably matter too much, So you can definitely the drafting assistance here is something that you could use on each and every turn, and that will also be fine. You do have to consider the curve just past this pick, because then you go past pick number 10. Okay, so there we have a really late game card, but it is quite punished by the fact that it is 8 mana. And I'm not sure I'm there yet that I would like to do that, but now I'm really happy that I didn't choose the 5-drop, because this one is something that suits this quite well. It's also a beast, which is something that is good for Hunter. And it gets better as your opponent gets rid of their hand, then it's really heavily statted. So this one is definitely the Grizzly, I agree here. Oh, this is also a bit interesting. Dalaran Crusader is really good, but I do have a lot of 5-drops. So if the drafting assistant were considering that I had so many 5-drops, it would be a little bit more hesitant in suggesting such a high tier score. It's still the strongest card, and it could work, but this time I would also like to go for the Fiery Bat, just to make sure I still have the early game. Okay. So the Eccentric Scribe is really an insanely good card. It is something where, if you look at those Venge from Scrolls, it's 6 mana and then it's 4/1/1, so it's 10/8, 6 mana 10/8. It's difficult to actually say that you can actually do that, because there are some 1 damage AoEs that makes it easy to get rid of the scrolls. But just looking at the card in general, that it is a little bit more sticky, and by sticky I mean that you might kill off the card, but it leaves something behind. Therefore, the Eccentric Scribe is really, really good, and it's also a late a threat for the late game. So definitely the pick here, that's for sure. Okay. These are not really great. These are vanilla status. It's just not looking at a card saying, well, it looks like it's very strong. The War Golem, 7 mana, 7/7. That's something I just like to go for. Toxfin can be great, but only if you are quite certain to get Murlocs, and you're not. You're not really trying to bet on actually getting something that with that heavy synergy effects. Therefore, and we should go for the Sunreaver Spy. We are in need of 2-drops, not dire need, but we're getting there. We want to have at least maybe 4 or 5 2-drops that is minions that you can actually do something with. It is mitigated a little bit that we have a lot of 1-drops already. That's really good. But having 2-drops is definitely key to making this Hunter deck work. And you could also get secrets, which makes the Sunreaver Spy even better. Okay. This is something you can drop onto, but it's also something that is really strong late game. Spectral Knight is okay, but we already have a lot of 5-drops. Bog Creeper is actually right now not really that great. It comes out at 2 turns before something that you really have to play around, which is a Burly Shovel Fist. Burly Shovel Fist is a 9 mana 9/9 with Rush. So this means that this 9 mana 9/9 will get rid of this one easily. It is 2 turns earlier than this Burly Shovel Fist, but still it's not something that matches really well with the meta right now. And the Hunting Mastiff is definitely good. It's 1 card that lets you reload the board completely. For 10 mana, you can drop 5 of these dogs we have here. It's really good, and it could work as a 2-drop if you have nothing else. Another 2-drop could be it, or the Cookie Chemist. So this one is kind of what you would call a trap card. You look at it and say, wow, you shuffle in 3 2/2 demons, that's 6 stats on top of something that is okay statted. If you have the option, you would have the other way around. So 4 mana 2/5 is definitely better than a 4 mana 5/2, because if you're looking at the 2-drop with 2 attack, can get rid of a 4-drop. That's why you need to make sure that if they're skewed, the stats, you would much rather have them skewed towards life, and then attack as the other one. Cookie Chemist can work as kind of a removal. If you have something with 0 attack that you switch around, then you just destroy the card, because a card can't exist with 0 life. A Witchwood Grizzly, if you have 12 attack, can make a push for, or 12 life. You can switch that around and make that 12 attack, and then you can maybe push for lethal. So it has some application in the deck. But again, we only have 3 2-drops, and now towards pick 15, I want to have focus on the curve to make sure I have enough 2 and 3 drops. We also need more 3-drops. That will also be like 3 more. I'll be fine. Maybe 2 more 4-drops, and then we need to flatten out. We also still need some more late game. Right now, I'd like to go for the 2-drop. Therefore, we go for the Bilefin Tidehunter. Another 2 and another 3. And they're also quite evenly if you look at the rating it gets. But right now, I would say that I only have 2 3-drops, and we're getting there with 3 2-drops. So I think I'll go for the Carrion Grub right now. Marked Shot is definitely the best one here. Web Spinner is also really, really good, but Marked Shot is something that could work as a 4-drop. You probably, on turn 4, you will probably have a target. If you're against an opponent that have not dropped the minion on turn 4, you're probably winning anyway. And then you are quite ahead. So Marked Shot will always have a target on turn 4. That's quite okay. You would also like to maybe develop, so that's why you also want the minions. But Marked Shot is definitely the pick here. Oh, so a 1-drop could be fine. I still agree that we need the 2-drop. Yeah. Looking at the background bouncer, it's evenly statted, but you would probably have some minions that die off, and it'll be maybe 5 or 6 attack or something like that. But Spellbook Binder is definitely good, and it, even though you do not get anything out of the battle cry, so if you have a spell damage card, draw a card, you might get that, of course, but it's not really that important, because it's quite okay with the stats it has. A 2-drop should have 1 more stat either in attack or life, and the best cards right now, however, for a 2-drop is a 2/3 stat line, because there are a lot of 2/2s or some 2/2s right now that lets you get just a free trade on that one. But a 3/2 is definitely worth picking anyway, so that's what we will do. Unleash the Beast. These are all really good. Deadly Shot has too much randomness connected to it. So either if you want to specifically target a minion, you need to trade off the full board and say, this is the one that Deadly Shot needs to hit. It's kind of different with Unleash the Beast. For 6 mana you get a 5/5. However, it's with Rush. So it's not, the stats for the mana cost is not really good. But it's something with initiative. Initiative is so important in the arena, and it's also Twin Spell. Twin Spell makes it possible for you to cast again. So you have 2 cards fitted into 1, and that's value. something we will also cover a little bit later. But Unleash the Beast is definitely the pick here, and it's also something for the later parts of the game. So definitely a 3 here. Is it Scarlet Crusader or Shaky Sit Gunner? We will have minions and something that carries over. That's quite good, actually. Mad Bomber is not the pick here for sure, because we do have 3 1-drops, and you can't drop a Mad Bomber if you have a minion on the board, because it's just random wherever the bomb hits. So you do not want to pick the Mad Bomber. Not with the kind of deck that we have right now. So this is something that your opponent could ping away if it's a mage. It's a little bit more difficult with the Shaky Sit Gunner. I would have loved it to be a 3-4 or something like that, or 4-3, but I guess this is fine. The carryover effect for the Death Rattle is really good. So if it's going to be the Flight Master, then I need to make sure I'm the one on the board, because the 2/2 that I summon for my opponent is something I need to deal with right away. But many times, that's also what I'm aiming for, right? I'll have either a 1-drop or a 2-drop, and then I can drop the 3-drop, and then have for 3 mana, I might trade off my 2-drop. So it will kind of be a 3 mana 3/4. But it's 5-6 worth of stats for 3 mana, even though I summon something for my opponent. But I still think it's worth it. I could drop a Friendly Bartender and trade it off kind of freely. I have a 2/1 left on the Bartender, so I think this is really great. I still need 3s, so it's Flight Master is what we go for. Okay, interesting. Hogsteed is really good, like crazy good. It's both a beast and a murloc, and it has initiative that should do something from the hand right away. Might get rid of my opponent's 2-drop. So this one has a lot of upside, but this one has initiative, something that you can do something with right away, and that's really what you would like out of a 2-drop. And it is also a sticky minion. It leaves something behind even after it either kills something or your opponent gets rid of it. Then you still have a 1/1 left on the board. And even though a 1/1 doesn't sound like a lot, it is still something. Okay, it's kind of a poor bucket. So 4 drops. Some 3-drops might actually get rid of the Booty Bay Bodyguard. That's why the Booty Bay Bodyguard is not really that good. And you get a lot of stats, a lot of shield value for the Mogashan Warden, but the 1 attack really draws the card down, and it is not a good card you would like to have standing in the way of your opponent. This does something. Again, it's an initiative card. Does something from the hand. You can influence the board right away, or even maybe push lethal or something like that. So and we only have one 4-drop, which is a minion. So therefore, the Stormwind Knight is actually quite good. Actually gets so it is a negative Death Rattle. It gives something to your opponent. Giving your opponent cards is not something that you're really keen on doing. But it is, if you are drafting an aggressive deck, I wouldn't say we're there. We are kind of a mid-range. We still have some late game cards. I think right now, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3-drops. That's fine, actually. 2 4s. If we choose this one, which we probably will, then we're also okay there. And we generally just need some late game, or maybe a 2-drop more. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually quite okay. So we actually just need the late game, and we're okay on 3s. But it is a mid-range deck, and therefore I think the Gnomish Inventor here, which is poorly statted but draws you a card, is really good. It's also an okay card to get late game, because just dropping something and getting you another card is okay. So this one gets some upside. I do have some spells, but I do not think it is enough. Archmage is a +1 spell damage. I have some synergy there with the where is it? The spellbook binder. So the 4/7 stat line for 6 is quite okay. But I will probably have a lot of minions which are damaged, and this one heals all of them, including myself. I think actually I like the Darkscale Healer a little bit better, both from the Violet Spell Sword and also based on the Archmage here. You could choose the Archmage. You get 2 more life out of the 1 mana, which is fine. But the upside for the 2 health that affects the full board is just too big in my book. Oh, it's probably the 2 the way I see it. It's so good. I do have 3 4s. I think that's fine. I would like some late game cards now, but this is fine. There we go. Burly Shovel Fist. To me, that's definitely the one. I do have an Eccentric Scribe right away, and you do need to remember that this specific drafting tool is penalizing the late game cards a lot, but right now I do not have anything on 7 or 8, so I would like to get the Burly Shovel Fist this time, and even though I'm really thinking about curve here. If it was the first pick, yes, definitely Eccentric Scribe is the best card here. But now I'm considering the curve, and I need some late game, something that really can finish off the game for me, and that's the Burly Shovel Fist. Yeah, I'm thinking about the Soldier's Fortune as well. But giving your opponent coins is of course really bad, but it's offensively statted, or it's a very well statted for the mana cost, and that's something that is worth quite some things. But the Blackwall Pixie is also good, like maybe for pushing the last bit of damage, and that's the second win condition that I'm trying to push a little bit for, controlling the board, getting some chip damage in, but then making a late game push through clearing some boards with the Unleash the Beast, Burly Shovel Fist, and maybe also just giving 4 damage to your opponent's face might be enough to finish them off. So this time I'll actually be choosing the Pixie, which can work as a 7 mana play. Unleash the Hounds are crazy good. Hunting Mastiff actually gets a good score here. I'm thinking, because the difference between them, Rush lets you affect the board, but Charge also lets you push face. And I think that's what I want to go for right now. It's something where you can also push face. This is the last card. I do have enough tools, definitely. I'm going for Unleash the Hounds as a finisher move. Late game push, maybe to finish off your opponent. It also works quite well with the Hunter's Mark, actually. Okay, so that's it. It's an okay deck. It has a good curve, which allows you to win some games. I can see you actually get a deck score here. So top 46% of decks is quite average, and I think that's quite true, actually. So it might just be something that goes 3 or 4, maybe 5. But there's some potential in there for sure, but nothing crazy. Okay. We'll try again and see if we can win the first one, and then that will conclude the video for this time, and then we'll make another video instructing around some of the other aspects of the arena. But this was the draft. Okay, so right now I'm against a non-ping class, which is perfectly fine. I'd like to draw one of my 3 drops, so I can drop a 1 and a 2. And I know my opponent cannot deal with, they cannot ping. They have potential to towards dealing with a board, but it is towards turns 5 or later, where they have, I think, Mars Hysteria, but at least Holy Nova as part of their repertoire. But I'd like to get a 3-drop, therefore we'll drop these. Blackwall Pixie is definitely fine. It could work on turn 7, no problem, but it is also a very good 3-drop because of the stats it has. So we'll just up the Fiery Bat. If, for instance, I would coin the Bilefin Tidehunter, that is the stronger minion, but then I wouldn't be guaranteed to draw a 2-drop. Now I actually do draw a 2-drop here, which is perfectly fine, but there weren't any guarantees. So this one I'll get rid of here. And he gets a lackey. I do not have time to go through all the lackeys. But there are lackeys which summon 2-drops. It actually damages 2. So I think that having a distributed board, meaning 2 minions, is a little bit better here. Next turn I'll drop the Blackwall Pixie probably. Thought Steal. That's actually great news for me, because right now I'm getting that and getting towards starting to control the board. That's really what I want to do with this deck. And he gets some of my stuff, which is in my deck, but still he needs to play for the same win condition if he's doing that, which is getting on the board. And when he's thought stealing, he's not getting on the board. So on turn 3, if you're not developing, then you're in a losing condition. And that's really great for me. I'll just push some face damage. I think the worst case here would be if he got the marked shots. Because the spells he's discovering is not hunter spells, that's priest spells, and some of them are really good.
For the king!
I don't mind that too much. I can actually deal with that. So for instance, if I coin a bomb squad, and then I have a turn 5 and another turn 5 play, I have to consider using the coin not too late in the game, because the effect of the coin is essentially becoming less and less. I don't want to use it too early either. But right now, if I use it, that's another 20% or 25% mana, I guess. You're getting to 5 mana, and it lets you drop turn 5 and then another turn 5, and then you already have your turn 6 lined up. So that's something we will do. And we also get rid of his board, and we develop the board a little bit. So looking at the board right now, I have my board, which were a 2-1 and a 3-4, and he had something on the board. I still have the 2-1, 3-4, and I have a 2-2 on my board, which is developing the board and controlling the board, and that's what we're doing. I guess that's also something a little bit later on as well.
Take your medicine.
That's not a strong minion for him. So a 5 mana 3/5 is not great, but you still need to put something on the board. Next turn we have Unleash the Beast, and I think these are quite fine to trade in. We're getting to that point now where he will have some kind of area of effect cards, which might clear off the smaller minions. But this should work okay. So even though I get the 5 face damage, I'm still on the board and counting the cards. Okay. That was actually a little bit annoying because I can't just get rid of it with Unleash the Beast. I need to trade in the 3/4 as well, but I think that is worth it. Yes, it is. Right now, I'm not trying. He has a lot of life still, so I'm not trying to push the board. So just realizing what is happening right now, I'm kind of, my board is less worth right now than it was the turn going into his turn, which is actually, now I'm starting to lose ground a little bit. So I have to be careful right now that I do not lose the ground completely. And then if he heals that one, guess that's still fine. Okay, so what can I do here? So this one leaves something behind. I can also heal, which gets rid of one of them. But then I do not have anything. I can also develop the Friendly Bartender if I also use the Darkscale Healer. But then he can get rid of that one afterwards. This one leaves what? A 5/1. And then I can get rid of both of them.
I wonder.
But this will leave more stuff on the board. It will leave a 5/1, but this leaves a 4/5, a 3/1, and also a 2/3. So this is definitely better. And if he wants his minion to survive, he needs to heal it, from what I can see right now at least. And then he only has 6 mana to develop some stuff. Which means that I am taking back the board right now. I don't want my opponent to actually to have something on the board. But when there is something, I need to be stronger on the board than he is. Or make trades awkward. Okay, so he got that one as well.
Delicious spider.
Okay, he's trying to do a little bit of value trading here. This one is good, so you can see I can use my 2-drop to get rid of his 3-drop. Even though he's traded before, I got rid of one of his as well. And then I also have Unleash the Beast. So this one and this one leaves a 5/1 and a 1/1, and it lets me develop the board, and as well as clearing off all my opponent's stuff. I just want to make sure what I want to have more healthy. I think it's the Viven instead of, because then the 5-attack minion will be a little bit more healthy. Get rid of that one. And this one.
Bottoms up. I move quickly.
And now we're getting to turn 9, and something that we have to be. He can draw a Burly Shovel Fist, but I guess so can I. So if he drops that one, then I'll probably mark shot it. Okay. That's not developing. It's some kind of initiative, but it's not developing the board. Therefore, I do have. How is it going to? Usually, you want to use all your mana. This time, I would actually conserve my resources a little bit, because all of these are initiative cards. I'll just do this and start pushing face. Then I conserve a little bit of my resources. We'll see what he does. we're getting to that. The one card you would like to be careful with the priest is playing around is mind control. So if I have one big minion, oh, that's pretty good. That was a good turn for him. He gets rid of some of my cards. That's a value play. We'll get into that in more details, but he removes more cards than he invests. So for him, that's actually pretty good. I will just drop the, instead of using a lot of cards here, I'll just drop the Shovel Fist. And then push some face damage. So for instance, if he does have the mind control and pushes this one to his side, then he can only trade in the 4/1, which is not getting great value out of a mind control. And if he's not taking care of the board, then I have 13 damage out there, potentially even more. We'll see. As I expected, the mind control is what he could play around. And he can only get rid of the 10 mana investment just to go even on the board. That's a horrible investment. If you have a card draw card, that's a random thing that you might get something specific out of the deck that you can play. Instead of playing the 3-drop first and then the 4-drop and then the 2, then you have almost used your mana, but you want to always draw the card first to give you an option of what you can actually do. This time, dropping a 2/5 or 6 mana for 2/6, you don't need the rush mechanic right now. So the Grub, the Carrion Grub, is definitely fine here. But it could have worked out maybe if you got the Eccentric Scribe. You would definitely want to drop that before a Carrion Grub. So this is fine. And I'm a bit ahead of on cards because he has 5 cards in hand. And I'm drawing a card next turn, and I have like 3 here and 2 out there as well. That okay. So these 2 can get rid of that one easily, doing a value trade, and then yeah, I could also just choose 1 card and fill the board completely. I think I'd much rather do that actually. And then this one. And for 1 card, I damage one of my cards, but then I develop the board and get rid of 2 of his cards. So that's what you would call a value play.
Death does not scare me.
Okay. So this... oh, that's actually pretty good. But now he's really playing out everything and hoping I do not have an answer. Unfortunately, for him, I do. Because then I can actually... just planning out the turn is really good. Because the Hunter's Mark goes there, for sure. Or does it... does it actually go here? Also marked shot that one. So this one 3 and a 4 and a 2. That's 9. I think that's what I want to do. Let's get the most out of the Unleash. Let's get rid of this one. Another Hunter's Mark? I guess so. And then I'll just push face. So right now I have a broad board. I don't want to invest everything. Right now he hasn't demonstrated a way to actually deal with a full board. He can only trade one. So a broad board right now is giving me the highest chance of actually getting lethal. If you look at the next turn, then I have, he'll probably do this trade, and then I have 1, 2, okay. I'm not sure why he chose that trade, but still. 4, 5, 6, 9. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 7. 8, 9. Need to make sure to count up if we do have lethal. So this one deals with the 6, 6, and then I can get rid of that one. And then I just push the button and give him another 2 damage, and I think that'll be fine. And I do have board control. Whoops. Let's get the Hunter's Mark first. And push in one of the 1/1s. And just give him some damage here. Next turn I do have lethal. Unless he has something in the hand. He's been saving up that one since turn 7. I'm not sure what that could be, however.
Got something to hide?
It's not a great card.
You have better.
And there we go. So I guess that concludes the draft and the first game. I know that I also introduced some of the concepts that I will dive a little bit more into and explain in depth before the next match that I actually do. Next video will be around board control, which you already kind of saw in action here, but I'll be talking a lot more into that concept specifically, initially, and over the course of the next game. So see you next time. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, that would be great for me, and see you next time.